The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome to Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is a podcast series highlighting Colgate alumni of color in their professional endeavors aftergate.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is hosted by Alvin Glimpf, aka Al, and Henoch Durbew, aka Jerry.
Are y'all ready?
We are doing Aftergate because Colgate University has produced innovators who have changed the world every day, yet many alumni of color and the mainstream Colgate community are unaware of the amazing accomplishments of alums of color.
Are y'all ready? Welcome. This is your boy, Al. This is Aftergate Season 2. It is awesome to be here again to have another great conversation. Yo, facts. I think this is our 50th.
I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to ask you because I kind of heard word on the streets because we might be at our 50th and I wanted to salute you and toast to that, my brother, because that matters. That matters because
let's take a second to marinate.
We set out with no real expectations on it. We set out with the purity of our hearts and our intentions to really create a platform that was true to the experience of the AOC when whoever defines that experience. And that was what made it beautiful. It wasn't limited. It's really every story we share and that we listen to is that definition of the AOC experience. And I think that's what makes it beautiful. So thank you for the opportunity to be on this journey with you and many more to come.
Here. Can't say it better, so I'm not. But for those who were not paying attention, that was my co-host, Mr. Henoch Durbew, aka Jerry, and this is Aftergate Season 2. I appreciate you giving us that love and really taking a moment to call it for what it is. And so thank you to you. I appreciate you being my partner on this journey. I have valued the opportunity to be witness to these experiences, and each one is different, but uniquely magnificent in its own right. And thank you to all of our guests who have been willing to share and heal together, right? I hope people took note of my post in the Facebook Alumni of Color page because it was a concept that I had not seen before, and this healing centered approach. And I think to your point, some of it we knew going in, the healing centeredness of it. I can't say I knew at the beginning, but it became really evident as we started having conversation after conversation after conversation and listening to people's where they are in this journey.
Absolutely. And I just want to encourage those who have already shown us our support to, reach out to those in your Colgate AOC circle that are still needing healing, because we all need it, and let them know there's space for them that can help start that process. So,
well, I hope you appreciate the post I put in our brothers chat, our Colgate brothers chat, where I shared Minnie Roman's link. Because I know some of the brothers in our chat went to school with her, and I think they'd appreciate hearing her story and other people's stories. But I'm also hopeful that nudges them to be part of.
I saw that was a graceful pick and roll. That was a very, let me just throw you a little look away alley oop, y'all. Peep game. that's how Brother Glenn does. And just for the record, the fact that we had a chance to kick it about a week ago, and the missus. Got a shout out to that, because anytime there's a time with the glimpse is a good time, whether you're in the ATL or the MIA, and it was nice to be able to break bread and kick it with you and fam, and thank you to Brother D, in his love and generosity, his spirits being I appreciate it.
You know how we glimpse do.
Exactly.
So appreciate hanging with you and the lady. So, but on that note, is it all right? Can I get your blessing to invite this brother in, our guest for this week?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is always for me a great opportunity to meet some younger brothers who are, somewhat not too far removed from the Colgate experience and really, uh, hear their story. So let's do it.
Without further ado, Aftergate family, listeners, may we bring into the room this week's guest, brother, the one, the only, Henoch Derbew.
Appreciate y'all, man. Thank you so much. I'm playing around with the settings. I was going to hit you with a little background action. That's why I was.
Oh, see, look at you showing
That's what we do. Okay.
Yeah, y'all gassed me up because you said I'm one of the younger ones. So I said, let me show y'all this technology, how good I am. But I'm
Okay.
My man. That's what's good. That's what's good. Good to see your face, man. Good to see your face and hear your voice.
Too, man. Appreciate
so
it.
Is that are those the Golden Gate Bridges?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's the default. I'm not gonna lie to you, but
okay.
I gotta go.
No, I was about to be like, maybe you're a Golden State Warrior fan. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can't do
maybe
it to my Knicks.
I had to ask. I can't do it to my Knicks either, but I want to know who I was talking to.
Nice.
We go there on Aftergate.
I see that. No, that's cool. I like that. I'm a long-suffering Knicks fan, so I just,
So this is perfect. All right.
3 long-suffering Knicks fans. Yeah. That sounds like a bad joke. That's like a bad joke. 3 long-suffering Knicks fans.
That could be a sitcom.
That's right.
So, okay, let's jump on in. So, in typical traditions, I try to offer to our fans to our listeners, where there is connection here from us and our guests, or are we meeting this guest first time on the spot? In this case, we definitely have crossed paths before. Class of 07, obviously we were not on campus together, but I know we have interacted as alumni of color and got to meet each other. Just of different generations. And more specifically, we were on campus this past reunion together and got an opportunity to meet each other's significant others and just kind of spend more time getting to know each other. So I appreciate this time because while I feel like there's a little bit of knowledge, nowhere close to what we're about to tip into tonight.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know how reunion is. It's always the tip of the iceberg. So I really do appreciate y'all having me on here. It means a lot. So I appreciate it.
So let's start with class of 2007. You graduate high school 2003.
Yep.
Where are you from?
I'm from New York City, so Brooklyn, New York. And I heard the accent, so
okay. What part of Brooklyn? Just out of curiosity, what part of Brooklyn?
So I grew up in in Clinton Hill, and then we moved in '99 to Spanish Harlem. Hashtag gentrification. So we had to we had to keep it moving. So and then now my mom lives in the Bronx in Parkchester. So when I go back home, I'm in Parkchester. Yep.
That's part of where I grew up.
Oh yeah, see, I can hear it for sure. Yeah, that you can. Yeah, so I was like, yep. That doesn't surprise me, man. So we have Parkchester right by if you know Saint Helena's and Saint Raymond's, that right there. So
those are battlegrounds of mine. Are you kidding me? I played ball in both schools. So
see, there you go.
Yeah. And I mean, it's part of Park. If you know Parkchester, then you know Saint Raymond's and you know Saint Helena's. Period. There,
exactly.
2 schools on the borders of Parkchester, and Parkchester is its own community within the Bronx.
Yep.
So, yeah, I got stories for days on Parkchester, which is a fun podcast that we ain't gonna discuss. But with that being said, so then I'm curious, where'd you go to high school?
So I went to I was in prep for prep. So I went to
Nice.
public school. Yeah, yeah, because I'm sure you guys probably had a lot of classmates at prep and from being from New York. But I went to prep for prep. So I got into Friends Seminary, Quaker School in Manhattan by Union Station. So that's where I was 7th to 12th grade.
Okay. So you was traveling from the Bronx into Manhattan.
At that time, I was in Spanish Harlem. So, but when I started Friends, I was coming from Brooklyn, and from the outer boroughs, Manhattan is the city, right? So,
right.
The city.
Yep.
The
So
city.
I took my little country bumpkin self from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and then when we moved to Manhattan, just take the bus down. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So take us back to that time.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? What do you remember in terms of your world? What's life like? But even broader, like if you can remember any specific things that might have been highlights for that time in the early 2000s. What do you remember about that time?
I would say like my school, I loved my school. I was in prep, you kind of get interviewed and kind of get violent. You pick, but you kind of get told where you're gonna go to school. And when I was a kid, I was like, I'm gonna play basketball. I'm the best basketball player, whatever. And I was like, I'm going to Poly Prep in Brooklyn, like the big school everybody wants to go to. And then I got my interview of Friends, and I was like, my interview, I'm like, yeah, this is a cool school and all, but I really want to go to Poly.
I got no basically you was like you got no ball program, so my career is gonna die right here if I come here.
And mind you, I was not anywhere. Anyway, I wasn't gonna play anywhere. I was like, but I went to the school, and if y'all probably familiar with the Quaker beliefs and so on, but like, we had this silent meeting and just the vibe of the school. I was like, it just clicked, and I was like, this is where I belong. And I finally understood what all my advisors and stuff were saying. So I went to the school, and it just really clicked with me that time of my life. Like, really got into the silent meeting, the kind of thing we all did in the mornings to get together, the pacifist beliefs that they had, the belief in injustice in our world. I went there when I was 7th to 12th grade. I was there during 9/11, and that was a wild time for so many reasons. Like, we were very close to World Trade. So, and people in New York at that time, it's like we forget, no one knew what was happening that day, right? So it's like we're going between classes outside to the other building, and there's this ash in the street, and again, it's very unclear. You're a math class, you're going to history, you like. And at that time, our meeting house was being renovated, so we were in this church across the street for our meetings, and it just kind of led to this otherworldly, like everything is out of whack, and just a really weird time. But again, it's like I was really glad to go to that school. And after that happened, when they started the war in Iraq, and at that time, since we were a Quaker school, we're one of the few schools you couldn't allow military recruiters. And and we were also not encouraged, we were allowed to miss class and go to protest at Union Square against the war. And that was my junior and senior year. And it was very formative because, I mean, I think, again, what we forget, 20 years later, is that at that time it was very unpopular to be, even in New York, I would say, to be critical of, our policies and stuff in that region of the world. So I did appreciate that critical thinking skills. And for the another good thing about my school is that they also had people who were pro the war come speak to us, because they were like, don't be critical of things just to be a social justice warrior or something. Like, make sure you got what you're protesting against or for. Like, don't just protest to be out there. Understand that each side might have some valid arguments that you might have to at least listen to. So yeah, that was the way I kind of left New York and ended up I went to Colgate. I really did come to that school as a boy and left as a young man. But really, like, man, I can't tell you how wonderful that school was for me. And in fact, the reason I ended up at Colgate, a very close friend of mine, Kyle Bolt, class of 06, he was a year older than me, went to prep, went to Friends. And I was all set, like most kids in prep, I was like, I'm going to Wesleyan, like,
of course.
And I was like, and because I was like, politically wise, I was like, I'm gonna live in X house, I'm good to go. But I visited college at Colgate, and similar to at Friends, it just hit me. I was like, this is the school I gotta go to. Like I'll never forget, like sleeping on this floor at Curtis, like, and we see like a deer running outside the window, and it's two boys from Brooklyn, like it's a doggone deer running out the window, like what? Like it was just so exotic to me, like, and it was again that feeling. I was like, politically maybe a little more conservative than I might be used to, maybe a little more white than I might be used to.
A lot more.
Yeah, but something in me was like, this is just that little challenge that I think will be good for me, and I just went for it, and it just felt right. So I ended up at Gate. Basically through friends, through my buddy Kyle, and through my high school experience, and financial aid also helped a lot. So
never hurts.
Yeah, that was a good little package. So it wasn't a basketball scholarship, but it was good.
so I'm curious. Besides, prior to the visit, you said you had a friend of yours, upperclassman, who attended Colgate. Well, I guess it was a freshman. I'm curious if you recall what was it about their experience that they shared with you that maybe they had been part of your interests, because clearly you got insight in a way that a lot of us didn't know anybody at Colgate before we got there, and so to know someone that was actually not only able to share but still going through the experience had to have had, in this case, some influence on you.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that question, because that's something I've taken it for granted. Like, as you're saying that question, I'm realizing there's a lot of cats whose first time at Colgate was when they got there.
Right.
You forget that, like, it's for me it was just a gut, and it's the fact that I had known Kyle for, at that point, 5 or 6 years.
You trusted him,
a third of my life. Yeah, I'm like, and it wasn't like roses.
Right.
But we could talk candidly, like, he's not gonna sell me anything. He's like, look, this is what it is, and I just like the way too. He was living in Curtis, and when I went there, I ended up in HRC for the next 2.5 years. But even though he was in a dorm, I was like, I can't really see myself. I love the way he interacted with people, like just very chill, laid back. And again, I'm from New York, and I'm thinking this is a rich white conservative school. I'm like, it's not chill people. I'm just going here for my education and because it's cheaper. But like to see, like, wow, like it's he's chilling with people too. Like I could do that. Like it's not. It kind of took out the boogeyman aspect for me. I wasn't scared of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
but again, I had that privilege though to have a friend like that to talk me through it, and I knew too for at least 3 years I have someone who has my back, and he introduced me to a lot of the alumni, now current alumni, color Rodney Mason, who I know was on the show, very good friend, buddy Jerome Hall, like he introduced me to the guys there, and I also saw from that aspect, it's like, there's a ton of support for us at this school. Like we're the few and the proud, right? Like it looked great to me, but I was like, even if it doesn't, I have a community. I already felt like I had a community there that would have me, take care of me. And it did. It worked out exactly like that.
Dope. So how was the academic transition coming from your school to Colgate?
And the demographics, to share for those people who don't know Prep and Friends, share a little bit about the demographics, because that oftentimes plays into that transition.
Yeah, so Prep for Prep it's a program. They take kids from public schools, students of color, to kind of train them for 14 months to go to independent private schools, like really rigorous academic training. In my contingent, for example, we started as 120. We ended up with 90 by the end of that 14 months, to give you an idea. And we get financial assistance to go to those independent schools that we wouldn't afford on our own. So the fact for that, rigorous training for Friends, I felt like I was pretty well prepared for Colgate. That being said, like college is a transition regardless, but I did have that leg up. Like I still had someone from Prep coming in and checking on me once a month, just like they did at Friends. I did
while you were at Colgate, they checked on you?
Friends and Colgate, and also it's I did have that experience of a predominantly white school, even though Friends was a lot more, I hate to use conservative liberal, but I'll just say more progressive, more liberal than Colgate. It was more comfortable for me. But it was a predominantly white school. It was a school where, you did go to office hours as a high schooler, or were pushed think critically, you were challenged. So that aspect didn't bother me. I loved it. But at Colgate, I was very, in high school, I was very good at math and at science. I was like, I went to Colgate. The rocky transition comes through. It's like, all right, I'm gonna be a fit. My dad is an engineer, and he's like, you're gonna be an engineer. I was like, Pop, I'm really not into this, but I'll give it a shot. So I did engineering. I said, I want to get through this as quickly as possible. So you take Calc 1, 2, and 3 as part of it. So since I got skipped in math, I said, why don't I just jump into Calc 2 my freshman year? And I'll never forget it, man. I came in and I said, like right before drop ad was over, I went to the teacher. I was like, what can I do to bring up my grade? He's like, well, let's look at your grades. And I think I had like a 40%, and he's like, it's mathematically impossible for you to pass. Because I was like, I was like, what I gotta study, what I gotta look. He's like, oh, it's not about that. Oh, you need to withdraw. And I was like, dang. And by that point, since I had skipped ahead, I'm already a year behind of my physics requirement. So I was like, I gave up that, and I my heart wasn't in it, but it was a level of arrogance, and it was a level of just, I want to get through this. But that was my rocky transition. Because I do believe like everyone has a rocky transition to college, and that. So it was my W on my transcript, and from that point I said, I had that hard talk with my dad, and I was like, my heart's not in it. My passion has always been like history, has been classics, and even if I were to be good at this, I don't think I would want to be in the field as my career. I'd just do it for money. And I said, I really wanted to switch my major. So I ended up right after that switching to history and classics, and I was a lot happier, academically successful, but it wasn't about that. I think even it was like, I was just a lot happier with school and my education after that point.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So how about extracurriculars? Like when you were on campus, were you involved in things outside of? Did you have jobs? What was that like?
Yeah, man. I had a bunch of jobs, like media service. I was a security, mail room, and now one of the things about that was amazing, I would say, is again from New York, you always equate white with rich, like it's the same thing. Like you don't see as well, as my experience. Like you don't see a lot of white people financially struggling, at least in my experience. And when I went to Colgate, it was so funny. Like in work study, it was typically either people of color or folks from the town. And it was like, and it was the wildest experience, like interacting with them, finding like how much I had in common with them, and we all had in common. And it's wild now thinking about it too. Like you're like, I would have never in a million years thought that I'd be in the mailroom talking to this person about him being a volunteer firefighter, and sometimes they'll say something like wild, and you're like, oh, I don't.
Like, we come from different places.
I'm like, I'm not really interested in your theories on Barack's birth certificate, but I'm like, but we can talk about other things, and but the extracurriculars, it was great, man. It was, the thing about Colgate, there's so much money, so much resources, like. So you could do whatever you want. So I did Brothers, and Brothers saved my life for so many reasons. We started the African Student Union, me and my buddy, CUTV, WRCU. Just, man, it's, I think every alum will say this, like, I wish I could do it again and just do 20 different other clubs, because it was so much to do. Like, I had such a ball, like, doing all of those things. And it's like, you're a kid from Brooklyn, and it's like, I never thought I'd have a TV show or radio show that people could listen to. Like, I never thought I could meet, Jesse Jackson when we had him over for the Brothers. And it's literally like, yeah, you have an idea, someone will give you money for it, or you can get a group of guys to make it happen, no problem. And it's like, yeah, that's 4 years of just, you can do whatever you want pretty much. And I love that.
It's funny you say that, because one of the things that I'm often asked if I could do college over again, what I do. And one of the things I've said this a lot to high schoolers, and I've talked to them in the arenas of youth development and college career readiness, is that if I could do my experience at Colgate again, well, let's not even talk about if I didn't go to Colgate, because that's a whole nother discussion. And if I didn't go to Colgate, I would have been at Wesleyan, another discussion. But one thing that I think is a theory we should challenge is this idea that you should do your university studies in 4 years. I often say I would have stretched it to 5 years. And there's two things that I would have done differently. One is it would have allowed me to stretch my academic workload, right? Which would have cut my stress levels a lot. But mathematically speaking, it would have also allowed me to engage in other endeavors that the university offered that oftentimes in hindsight, I'm like, damn, I didn't do that. I didn't explore that. And partly because those 4 years, it was very regimented. It was school, work, study. I played ball. That was it. I was involved in extracurricular. I had a girlfriend off campus. You know, my 4 years was it. But I realize now, like, yo, I could have did that in 5, stretched it.
Right.
1 less class per semester, maybe even a summer up at Colgate, you know, in hindsight. Then I couldn't get off campus fast enough to get back to the Bronx, right?
That's it, yeah.
Like I was doing my last final, done. I'm in the car, I'm out. You know? Right. And in hindsight, I'm thinking about, yo, you had the mountains, you could do some camping, some hiking, you know, even had a group say, yo, let's stick behind as a collective and ball, whatever. Stuff that we're paying for to do now. And never mind study abroad. We had a guest on the show recently that blew my mind, because one of the most common things that comes up is the difference between those AOC experiences that had a chance to study abroad and those that did not. And I fell into the did not for a lot of other reasons. But the point being is that we had a guest on the show that flipped it, and this goes to your point about there was so much resources out there that if you just asked the right people, they could make it happen. She graduated and then went on a study abroad program.
On their dime.
I like that.
Okay.
Yep. But
so
see,
let me.
that's the
Go.
I appreciate that point, because it's and I say all this. This is hindsight is 2020. Like I went abroad for once or something. Like me and my wife going to London. We're gonna pay out our behinds to go to London this winter. And I'm like, I wish I went to London as a student. Like, you know, it's and I don't know if you were saying if you were an athlete at Gate, but I think that's a whole other experience, man. It's like the athletes I in the AOC community that I got up with, it's like, man, I respected the heck out of y'all, because your life is so regimented, and it's like the opportunities I had, and thank God I could still afford the school with the financial aid and didn't have to go through. And it's like, man, the stuff, because I work with a brother who at my school, he's the one who put me onto the job I'm at now, and he was, you know, a big football guy, and he got to do a lot of stuff too. And I'm looking into his schedule. I'm like, how did you fit all that in? And I'm stressed out with just my little work study and my 4 classes. But it's like, talk about 2 a days, and you're there in the summer, and so
yeah, it was definitely a special level of commitment to be a 100%. Student athlete. My question was, when you look back at your 4 years, what do you look back at, like accomplishment highlights? What are things that you kind of are real proud of that you accomplished?
I would say for a summer I went and I would imagine, you know, Professor Sindima, he took a group of us to Africa, to Zambia, between sophomore and junior year, and it really invigorated something in me to get back into that. I'm a first generation American, and when I came back, I was really inspired. Like, I had this idea bubbling, like I want to make a play about my dad's experience coming to this country as a refugee, or just his experience back home. And because I heard the story growing up, and it just informed so much of me and my cousins and my family's life. And I wanted to tell this story in a way that just condensed all of this information that I grew up with into a little play to explain it to primarily the AOC community, but of course to the wider campus. But you know, my first family on campus was the AOC family, so we ended up doing it in the Edge Theater, which was part of HRC at the time. And it was amazing, man. It was, it went exactly the way I wanted it to go. And I'm not a playwright. Like that's not what I do. It just kind of came out of me. And I was so proud of it because it was like, this is one thing I can say, like, out of respect for my father's experience, out of respect for all those who passed away in that experience, and to communicate that story that is part of who I am to my AOC family and to the greater campus, to leave that mark, like that's something I really appreciate that I got to do over there.
That's dope. What where is your father from?
Ethiopia. Both my parents are from Ethiopia.
Nice. So, we had a Dr. Tedla, Eleni Tedla was an administrator. She was over the cultural center when we were there, and was from Ethiopia, and was instrumental in our development, but a lot of other students as well. And I was really, it's funny like you mentioned that, because I feel like everybody from Ethiopia looks the same, right? I don't know what that's about, but it's like now that you say that,
it's the air and the water.
You could have been related to Dr. Taylor. Now that I look at you, right? But
we only have like 5 names, so as soon as you said the name, I was like, oh, Ethiopian, I got you.
So curious. By the time you get to Colgate, she's no longer there. Had you even heard that name before?
No, not at all.
Really?
Which is I feel like that is the AOC story, and like the staff of color story. It's like you'll miss someone by 1 year, and then you'll meet them as an alum, and you're like, you did exactly what I've been trying to do on campus. How did we not? But it's maybe you just miss a linkage. Like, when we met. That's why I love this thing what y'all are doing, because you're really creating those linkages, because they get lost so quickly. You're like, man, I would love to have an organization for African students on campus. It's like, oh, come to find out 5 years ago, someone already did that. Like, didn't know that. Come on.
That's what this is all about. Just kind of sharing. And again, much of it, we are appreciating the benefits that we didn't really consider when we sat down and kind of brainstorm. We had our sense of what it could do, but it is really doing so much more than we ever imagined.
Yes.
So,
I'm glad you recognize that. Yeah.
Much love. So we're gonna put a pause right there, take a break, so we can show some love to our sponsor, and then we're gonna come back to have part 2 of this conversation. We'll be right back. So this episode is sponsored by Hope Murals. Hope Murals is a nonprofit that provides adolescent youth with an interactive experience of creative expression via an urban arts platform that stimulates both mental and physical development. Please visit their website at www.hopemurals.org to learn more and find ways you can support the work they do. Welcome back. Here we are, part 2 of this conversation. Again, this is Aftergate Season 2. Looking forward to continuing. But before we get there, let's make sure we thank our sponsor, Hope Murals. Nothing but love for Hope Murals. Just a bunch of artivists, trying to use that word more in my vocab, but they're doing an amazing job helping our youth with their development. And like I said, exposing them to whole urban art. So check out their website, hopemurals.org. Learn more and make a donation. Also want to show some love to our network, the Defy Life Network. If you want to check them out, go to their website, which is godefylife.com. Much love to our network. We greatly appreciate all of their support. And you can also check out their podcast hub. You can find dope podcasts like Aftergate and others. And that is defylifepods.com. Show them love. Now, let's jump into our conversation, good brother. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Most people know I'm a religion major, so definitely appreciate the deep philosophical thoughts of people on where we are when it comes to faith, spirituality, and religion. And for those who are really paying attention and those who really care about religion and how it's supposed to be used, right? It's gone astray. Right? It's it's in many ways being used to harm, to defame people. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I know you have history as a seminarian, and you are definitely showing up to be a very thoughtful, insightful cat.
Oh, thank you.
Really interested to hear your thoughts on where we are from your view, and just go from there.
Appreciate you. I mean, no, I appreciate y'all, and just my view. I grew up in I would say between agnostic and religious household, like all kinds of faith and stuff. We had all religions in my family, but it was always a live and let live policy. And I grew up, I would say though, for myself, just somewhat critical of organized religion. My parents grew up literally in a feudal country that where the church was kind of oppressing people. And when I went to Friends, that kind of Quaker spirituality kind of opened me up. This kind of spirituality that believes in justice, that believes in a God that loves you and doesn't hate you all the time. That was very fascinating to me. And when I got to Colgate, a lot of people I met started, in particular the chaplain Mark Shiner and his wife Rebecca, who's a professor. Yeah, unfortunately, actually, they just lost their son, who was a good young man. But they really showed me that other side of it. And right after Colgate, I was a history major. I was really eager to go to Africa to help, with development. Like, how can we economically develop our people? And I ended up going to Georgetown, and in my class was a Jesuit, a Catholic seminary. He was a priest at that time, and it just fascinated me because I was like, well, what are you doing here for your public policy degree in international development? And he had been working in DR Congo during the war, ministering to rape victims. And it just blew my mind. I was like, I grew up with the priest as like God Jr. You don't talk to the priest. You don't do nothing. The priest is just better than you, and just, be really good to priest. But this guy was going in the trenches literally. And it was just fascinating to me too, because he was trying to heal these people who got a victim, destroyed in this way. And he was ministering to them in a way that no one else could. Like, you could heal these people physically, you could do, but this guy was, and I was like, he's not going there to judge them. He's just going there to be with them and accompany them. That's it. And I said, wow, taking from what I got from Colgate, what I wanted to do in my life, I was like, I think this is something I want to be in my life, the spirituality. And I met some more of the Jesuit priests at Georgetown, and I just would listen to them every Sunday. And I'm like, wow, you're not telling me who to vote for. You're not, you're talking about justice in your homilies. Like, this is crazy. So a couple of years after that, I ended up joining the Jesuits myself, and I really wanted to be a priest to do my part. Like, how do we develop not just our communities, but heal people spiritually the way I'd been getting that healing. But and eventually I left just because I was like, I had such a ball doing it. I had so many experiences I won't bore y'all with, but like, I was just like, I just, that to be a priest for the rest of my life, I was like, that I don't think that's what God is calling me to do. I think, if God wants us to be happy and joyful, I think I'm doing this to, I still kind of had those remnants of that old religion in me. I was still trying to impress God, as opposed to just using my gifts to live joyfully. So I said, all right, let me do something else. So I ended up still going back to the school I was assigned to, because I really believe deep down, like, the best way you develop a community is you educate the youth. So, I continuing with that, and I love that. It's draining as heck, and my gas tank is near empty at times with these kids, but I do believe that's the move. But now as we get into this election season again, and you see, and I don't want to say the right way, because I don't want to judge somebody's religion, but like, you see what passes for the Christian message and so on in religion, like this kind of debasement of women, attacking women's freedom, or attacking other people's, ethnicity or immigration status or so on, under the guise of religion, when it's really just greed. And, I really believe, like, I'm not, I love America's a great place. It has its issues, but I think one of the good things about America is we have the separation of church and state. And I just don't think people understand how valuable. Like it grinds my gears when I go into mass and I see a flag. And it's not that I hate the flag in any way. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why these things have to be separate. Like, do not combine them, because that can only end badly. And as someone who I go to mass every Sunday, like, I'm not saying I don't like church. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we've really kind of painted ourselves in a corner, I think, in this country. And it just stinks. Like, someone might say, like, well, you Christians do this and this to this country, to this world. And, I really can't have a comeback. I'm like, you're right. I'm with you. Like, we have been making a mess of this country. So that kind of gets me down. And, I just do my best. I vote, encourage everyone to vote, do stuff in my community. But it can be draining when you see, like, the message, you kind of keep it at the center of your life, or try to keep it at the center of your life, because I don't do it right myself. But when you see it warped to that extent on a public stage, it's really, it's really tough.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And can relate. This world can be draining, and sometimes it's hard to associate yourself with any group.
Yeah.
Shit, it's hard to associate myself with humanity sometimes, based on the things people are doing in the name of humanity. And so I feel you on that. So I'm very interested now, based on your response, very interested to hear your path, your journey from once you graduate Colgate to where you are now professionally. What's those stops been like? How did you get from graduation to where you are now?
Man, it's the funny thing. It was exactly like Colgate. I graduated. I had a choice between Teach for America or Georgetown grad school. It was all set for TFA. Went to the Georgetown, sat in a class. I'm like, I need to be here. Like, and like, that's Jesuit spirituality says, like, when your gut is telling you something, listen to that, because there might be something really there that might be where you're being called to. Like, follow that, see where that leads. Does that lead you to more life or less life? And if it's more life, go for it. And I was like, this is where I think I gotta be. And it was a great decision. And I needed some money for the school. Come to find out, there's a Colgate alum who's a teacher, Jim Smith, who's very big in the Colgate alumni world. And he's like, I'm like, they denied me a scholarship. He's like, I got you. Send a little email. Got a little scholarship.
That Colgate connection is real.
That's it, man. And it's funny, when we think of ourselves as 18 or 22, like, we're doing these things. We don't know what the heck we're doing. Now I look back on it, I'm like, my dumb 22-year-old behind did that by accident. I'm looking at it like that was a plan. Like, that was an accident.
No. That's when you realize, and you would appreciate this. And I've been using this line since my last 2-3 months, and it was shared with me that there are no accidents or coincidences in life. It is God's way of remaining anonymous.
I like that, man, because I see that now. I'm like, you as you guys are saying, like, how do you connect the dots? Like, that's exactly what it is. Like, you look back, you're like, this was all, even the hard stuff. Like, man, like, I was 6 months in, I went straight from undergrad to grad school. I'm with cats from the World Bank, from Ministry of Finance.
Right. And doing real life shit.
Yeah, we're in a budget class. He's talking about the Turkish Ministry of Finance. I'm like, well, and brothers, one day I had to write a budget for a BAC. So, same thing. I'm like, it's not the same. I don't know what I'm talking about, a budget. Like, it's just like, I was so out of my depth. I felt out of my depth. And I remember one day just sitting at the house. I'm like, what the hell am I doing in DC at Georgetown grad school? And I just really, like, man, I tell you, this is one of the few, I could say, like, deepest moments in my life. And I was just I said, what the heck am I doing? And maybe I just needed to say it out loud or articulate it, but I just felt the sense of just peace and, like, I got this. Like, I got this. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's again one of those moments you kind of don't have. It wasn't planned. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't invent that feeling of uplift. It happened to me, luckily. And it's like, and So I moved on from there. But when I got out of Georgetown now, I don't have any experience. I got all this debt, all these loans, and it's the economic meltdown. It's '09. So I'm like, so I go back to New York for a year, and it's probably the hardest year of my life. I'm at home. It's my parents just split up, and I'm just like, can't get a job. I end up
welcome to the party.
Right. I end up doing odd jobs. Like I got my dream. I had a little internship at the UN. It was unpaid, but to make money, I had to get a job out of Staten Island on a temp job. So imagine this, and New York, from the Bronx to Staten Island every day. I'm leaving at 5.
Oh.
Who takes a boat to work? I'm taking a boat to work every day.
That ferry.
Yeah, and it's like, and I'm like, this is real world sucks, man.
This is some bullshit. This is not what my life is supposed to be about.
Exactly. I'm trying to help the world. Like I need some help. I need so I'm being really bitter on this boat to Staten Island at 5 a.m. and but eventually I got an opportunity. A brother of mine in 08, cat named JJ Figueroa. He's like, I got a little internship my godfather runs in Berkeley, California. So I go out to Berkeley. Awesome.
Let's go. Right.
Awesome. I get down to LA. I work for AmeriCorps, then I do Teach for America. Because I'm like,
circle.
If I can't, I'm like, if I can't, exactly, right? So I went when I was supposed to, I guess, But it's like, if I can't, be that guy, the UN and the World Bank, which was my dream for so long, to develop these things, people like, what can I need to do something. I'm not going to sit and be bitter. Let me teach these kids. Cause I never saw myself as a teacher, and I still don't, to be honest, but I do believe that these kids are going to be our future, and they need love, and they need somebody to just like, one of the best things I think I do as a teacher is like, I'm right. I love Star Trek. I love history books. I just read a book in front of them. And I think like for them to see somebody like just being himself, I'm like that. I just hope that stuff like that gives them license to be themselves and do something positive in this world. And to me, that's like, I would love if someone said, "Hey, work at the World Bank today." I probably would go, but I'm like, I think what I'm doing now is good too.
Sabbatical.
So I'm like, but because I still have that dream, and I'm still like, I do want to still work in that development world. But I'm like, what I'm doing now is not a waste at all. Like, and I'm not saying no one is telling me it's a waste. I'm saying I'm talking to myself. I'm like, bro, I know this wasn't my degree. Like, my degree is public policy, but this is where I'm supposed to be at right now. So, and the kids, they will keep you old and young at the same time, but they're good people. But
listen, talking to two brothers who have been in the classroom and direct service and work with young people still today directly. Preaching to the choir. So as a matter of fact, I'll go as far as say, no matter what role I've served, I've always intentionally carved a space in my role to have that contact with young brothers and sisters to keep me grounded in understanding why I do what I do at that level, because this is who we serve. So kudos and blessings to the journey, brother. Keep doing.
Appreciate you, man.
But give me that little close. So you were almost at your teaching now. Tell us a little bit about where you're teaching. What are you teaching? Your class. Give us a little current events.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So So I was teaching in LA high school, and then I joined the seminary for about 4 or 5 years. And when I left, I came to the school that I'm at now. So now I'm teaching 7th grade reading. I'm the admissions director. So I kind of go around DC and Maryland recruiting kids. We're 4th to 8th grade for boys from low-income families. And what I'm teaching on the other side is that 7th grade reading. So I want to teach them things like I just feel like they should know, and things that I dug and I got to be taught and friends. And so now I'm teaching them Persepolis, a graphic novel about this girl who grows up in the Iranian Revolution. I told them this book about the Black upper class called Negroland. And because I was just like, I want y'all to learn, like, Black people, we could be wealthy too, and we could be snobs about it as well. Like, we could, like you have to know our narrative, our story is so diverse. Like I'm teaching y'all all these books, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like there's so many. I'm like, y'all got stories. Like, I tell them all the time. I'm like, they love me, and y'all could tell I love going on a tangent. So it's like, every day I'm like, the race is made up. Ain't nothing in your DNA says, you're this or you're that. I'm like, all of y'all got different stories. Like, we're all brothers for sure. But I'm like, dive deeper. Like, some of y'all, families from down south, some of y'all families from the Caribbean, some of y'all, like, let's dive into these stories, like hear each other's stories. Because that's what we're doing in HRC. I'm just I'm repeating back to them what I learned. I'm like, y'all need to learn some Shakespeare. We're gonna read Henry V. Like, we're gonna read about the Holocaust. We're gonna read Maus. Just and I want them to connect to these stories too, to be like, your story is just as valuable, and you have the capacity to find a connection to any other story in the world. And should that click with you, go with it. Like, go, just keep going. And I'm your facilitator. I'm not your teacher. I don't know more. And like you said, like, y'all work with young people, and young people are the most honest people. They will tell you about yourself. So I say that in the non-cliche way, but I learn more from them because they know me to a T. Like, if I come in, they like, you having a rough morning, ain't you, Mr. D? I'm like, you know what? I can't even.
Right.
You're right. Leave me alone.
You're right. I know.
So
That's it.
With that said, and I definitely see some follow-up conversation, because right before we jumped on, Al and I were talking about hip hop and youth development and putting together a little summit for young boys around the country. So that's a little, we don't keep it as a best kept secret right now, and you're just gonna let that marinate. But we're gonna be following up with you at your school in DC for young men.
Please do.
But talk to us a little bit about, in retrospect now, going back, even though you're not, OG, but you definitely got some stripes on you, and I appreciate your soulful spirit. What would you say to yourself coming out of high school, 17, 18-year-old, going into Colgate? What might be gems of wisdom you share with yourself about what to expect or how to navigate the Colgate experience? And then what would you also say to a 21-year-old self about going into the world post Colgate?
I would say for 18-year-old self, take as many risks as possible. If you have an idea for something, just knock it out. I say 22-year-old me getting out of Colgate, I would say, dang, man. I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to branch out. Don't, because I think for me, like the first 2-3 years out of gate, I was like, I wanted to recreate the gate outside, or like go back to it somehow. And it really kind of stopped me from getting the fullness of what was available first. Because I think the first one is really hard after you leave that bubble. So just be like, much love to the gate, but now be your an alum, if that makes sense.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Last question before we get out of here. You have an opportunity to promote any initiative, any website, any opportunity. We really love to give our guests this platform to share with our listeners. That is a big part of what Colgate is about. It's not just sharing your story. We're really leveraging the support and giving more people an opportunity to connect with something that you find very important. So what would you like to share?
Well, I'd be remiss as admissions director, but I would say, for anyone who knows boys or girls, because we have a sister school, 4th to 8th grade, young men who need a good school, hit us up. Washington Jesuit Academy in DC. We got JB Gerald, class of 04, is our head of alumni success. You got me there. Howard Blue, 05, was a long time. He was one of the founders of the school and a long time staff member. But yeah, we're just trying to be a positive influence on kids in the DC metro area. So if you know anyone, hit me up anytime, Washington Jesuit Academy, and I'm very happy to see if we'll be a good match for them. Tuition free, all boys Catholic school. Like I said, we have a sister school, Washington School for Girls. But yeah, always looking for great young boys and for them young girls who would really benefit from that education.
Awesome.
Oh.
Any last word before we get out?
Man, I really appreciate what y'all. Before I came on, I saw the list of guests. Man, I gotta go back because I stopped at like the first season. I didn't see all the other. I didn't see you got Rodney, Chef. So just much love to what y'all doing, and I think like we were saying earlier, like these linkages between the alumni of color and even though we didn't go to school together, we definitely looked up to y'all and appreciated the experiences, the things y'all paid for us to make it an easier school and a more community for us, and that's something I've always wanted to do for the next generation. But I do every time we get together, and I'm glad Sonia told me about this podcast. But just really appreciate what y'all trying to do. So please keep it up, and it's part of a great tradition that we have, man.
Well,
All right.
we greatly appreciate the acknowledgement, and the fact of the matter is, as you listen to these episodes, is that is a spirit in the community of color that exists, and it's exactly what you described. This idea of making it a better community for
Right.
those to come behind us, and all that people ask is that you do the same for the people that come behind you. So
Right.
you have got that spirit, and so it's been awesome to get to know you and learn a little bit more about your journey. And on that note, this has been another episode of Aftergate Season 2. Appreciate our guests. Thank you to our listeners. Aftergate is always powered by the Defy Life Network. So make sure you check us out in the future on all of your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe when you listen so that you get alerts as post every Saturday at 1300 hours. Many more dope episodes to follow. Remember, the Colgate of your day is not the Colgate of today, and it's certainly not the Colgate of the future. Peace, family.
Shh. You hear that? Listen closer. That, my friend, is the deafening sound of focus. It drowns out all the useless noise that can clutter the moment. Naysayers don't exist. Haters? Smaters? The peanut gallery? Who's that? When you in your zone, all that noise and all that buzz is just elevator music. So, enjoy your journey, focus on your goal, and bask in the quiet roar that is progress. Because when it's your time to shoot that shot, spit that verse, or close that deal, the only voice that matters is yours. Defy Life.